name is Jan Walters, and I'm a MAT candidate at USC in the TESOL program. I'm working on my Education 505 class, a project called Engaging Students with the Text. Today I've come up with some strategies to engage students with a textbook that we use here on the central coast of California called High Point. It's been chosen by the school district as a series of textbooks to use in the English language development classes. And I've been focusing on a chapter in particular, Unit 9, entitled Let's Celebrate. This is a chapter devoted to the content area of studying festivals around the globe from different countries. The book takes a sociocultural approach and it uses the common theme of dance. So it covers celebrations around the world in places like China, Mexico, England, Korea, Japan, Turkey. And it uses the common theme of dance in order to activate prior knowledge with the students. It has students working in groups and pairs. It has some listening skills, some cassettes that accompany the text. Students are even encouraged to make a concept map surrounding the theme of dance. Students get up and dance together. They read poems about dance, all designed to activate prior knowledge. In fact, even for myself, the piece I was just playing at the beginning was an Irish dance. And as I was reading the chapter, it activated my own prior knowledge of having played dance music, performed dance music on the harp from the country of Ireland. So at first glance, this book seems like it might cover everything. It's got many, many different strategies incorporating sociocultural approach, group work, activities, pair work. And I started thinking, well, I need to come up with 3 different strategies that might further engage students. In the end of the book, in the end of the chapter, it has a section called Success in Social Studies, and it covers celebrations in certain areas of the world, in Southeast Asia in particular, and it introduces some small maps of the area, teaches students to recognize certain words like the country Thailand, the country Myanmar, Laos, China, which are all depicted on the map. According to Krashen, acquisition requires meaningful interaction in the target language, natural communication, in which speakers are concerned not with the form of their utterances, but with the messages they are conveying and understanding. One activity I decided that I would do was to incorporate the use of travel brochures, bring realia into the classroom for the students. So I collected some travel brochures, and these can be found at any travel agent or printed offline these days, in order to use in your classrooms. Regarding authentic materials, Crawford in 2006 said, "Language is as it is because of the purpose we put into it. For this reason, materials must contextualize the language they present. Without a knowledge of what is going on, who the participants are, and their social psychological distance in time and spaces from the events referred to, it is impossible to understand the real meaning of an interaction. In other words, language, whether it is input or learner output, should emerge from the context in which it occurs." By the use of travel brochures, bringing into the classroom, accompanied with the globe, students will plan an imaginary vacation that they might take as a group. We'll organize a class group travel where we might visit some of these countries. One important aspect I thought about this chapter, it includes very specific countries. And in your classroom you might consider including places in order to make it more real to the students, have them make connections, places that you've been as a teacher. You could wear clothing that you might have collected from different countries, realia, different objects, different artifacts that represent different cultures. Students can look at the travel brochures and see the word, for example, Mexico, Chinese New Year, and find these places on the globe and find where they are in relation to each other, how we might travel from one place to the next, recognizing words. This is all designed for students at a beginning stage of their English language development, as is the textbook High Point. But it can be used at many different levels. But the important thing is that it engages students in real communication about real things, going to real places. Now, students might have come from different countries that are depicted on these travel brochures, and you could pick travel brochures that specifically represent cultures that students have been to, or new cultures that students might choose to travel to. Another strategy for engaging students further with this text is something called sketch to stretch, and it was developed by Harst, Short, and Burke in 1988. And it's a method by which students draw quick sketches to stretch their thinking and understanding of concepts. The technique can be used in a variety of ways. It teaches students to visualize, to make connections to the text, and it can also be used as a pre-reading activity to show what they already know. In order to connect students further with my textbook, High Point, I thought as a pre-reading activity it might work for the social studies section that I referred to in learning about maps. There's a short 2-paragraph reading called New Year Celebrations in Southeast Asia. And I thought as a response to this reading, I would ask students to quickly draw a sketch of something from that reading that touched them, a way to express themselves without having to use words, a way of maybe activating prior knowledge, a way of asking a question, but without having to use language. Now, I did this with several students, and the thing that was interesting is I came up with some very different sketches, all from the same reading. Here's an example of one sketch from one student. An example of another sketch, a different student, same reading. And a third sketch from yet a different student, all from very different backgrounds. As a further development to this activity, I decided that students at the end were going to get together and discuss their drawings and why they drew what they do. According to Michael Genzuk, professor at USC, he says learners should not try and learn language in the usual sense, but should try and lose themselves in activities involving meaningful communication. By drawing these visual connections to the text through making pictures, expressing themselves in ways other than through words, such as dance, which is incorporated throughout the textbook, or sketching pictures of their thoughts upon reading a text, and then discussing them. Students are involved in an activity where they're communicating about what they're learning, but not worrying about the language that they are using. And as a final strategy for incorporating into this textbook and the section on celebration of festivals, at the very end of the chapter, there's a writing project. And students are encouraged to go home and speak to their family members about a festival in their country, a festival in their culture, gather up information, pictures, and put together a poster that they can bring and share in the classroom. As an alternative to this idea, and a way of using new media and incorporating new media, I decided that I was going to have my students all write a book on a program, a website developed by Barnes & Noble called Tick-A-Talk. Tick-A-Talk is a website where parents and their children, or teachers and their children, can illustrate and publish original stories into professional quality hardcover or paperback books or ebooks. In this classroom, we will be doing ebooks. It's a way of building confidence and motivation in reading and writing across the curriculum. In addition, the use of new media allows access to the participatory culture for English language beginners and inspires and facilitates creativity. Students in this particular unit will be encouraged, they'll be given a choice of activities and books that they can compose on TikTok. They can either write about their own festival from their own culture, incorporating pictures on the web or their own photographs which can be uploaded, or they may choose to write about a new one that they learned about in class from another culture. And third, for those students who really want to be creative, they'll have the option of writing about an imaginary trip, as we discussed through the use of our travel brochures, all the various countries that we talked about traveling to, places in the world, using the globe, identifying the names of countries, and they can plan an imaginary trip on their TikTok book, which will then be published as ebooks. So these are just some strategies to incorporate into the classroom. They use a highly sociocultural approach, most of them, in that it engages learners with each other, engages them further with the text by activating prior knowledge, and encouraging them to work as a group. We create a community of learners this way who are all responsible for each other's learning. And there's also a constructivist approach as well, because students are able to build on their prior knowledge, construct knowledge based on what they have learned in the classroom, based on the different projects. And so this community of learners will use these strategies, and by the authentic activities actually will help the students construct their own meaning. Thank you for listening.